Hi everyone and welcome back to a new video. So as a huge lover of matcha, today I thought I'd talk you through some of its benefits and also share a few recipes on how I like to use it. If you're wondering what matcha is, it's basically a special type of green tea powder. The green tea leaves are ground on stone, which creates this fine powder, and it can be used to make teas or as a flavouring. My favourite matcha is by the Matcha Reserve, as they come in so many different flavours, from sweet flavours like chocolate and caramel to vanilla and peppermint to fruity flavours such as apple, peach, strawberry, and then of course there's also the original matcha. Matcha is full of antioxidants, vitamins and minerals. It helps the mind to focus, but it can also help with relaxation. It supports the immune system and boosts metabolism. It's a great way to detox the skin and body naturally, and it's also a healthier source of caffeinated energy, which doesn't give you the jitters that you can get when you drink coffee. The ways in which you can use matcha are endless. I'm starting with probably the most common way in which it's used, and that is for a matcha latte. For this I like to measure out my milk first. For hot drinks I like to use the Oatly barista milk, as it's so creamy and frothy, plus it never curdles, and I just pour that into a pan and heat it up gently. I then take the handmade traditional matcha bowl, also from the Matcha Reserve, which is shaped and sized especially for whisking up a frothy matcha. I then take the Beautician matcha whisk, which I store on the whisk holder, and this just helps to maintain its shape. I then use the bamboo chesaku to measure out the perfect amount of matcha, and then I take my flavour of choice, and here I use the caramel matcha. I use about 3 scoops, I like mine quite strong, and I add that to the bowl, and then using the whisk I just press it down on the matcha to break up any lumps or clumps. I next pour in around 1 tablespoon of hot water, and then using an up and down motion I whisk the matcha into a paste. I add that into my cup and then pour in the warm milk. I sometimes froth this up before serving with one of those battery operated whisks. Give it a good stir, and then I sprinkle over a little bit more matcha on the top. Matcha lattes are one of my favourite hot milky drinks. I tend to use the sweeter flavours like caramel and vanilla, and don't really feel the need to sweeten them anymore, but if I use the regular matcha then I will sweeten it a little bit with some maple syrup. Another way I like to use matcha is to make an iced matcha latte, and I make this in the same way. I like the peppermint flavour for this, so I take 3 scoops, press the whisk down on the powder in the bowl, add in my hot water, and then whisk it in an up and down motion. I then add some ice to a glass, pour in my milk. I use the original Oatly here, but I love almond milk for iced drinks too. And then I just pour over the matcha and mix it all up with my glass straw. It's basically the same as the matcha latte, but obviously an iced version. So I love drinking these in the summer just to cool down. They're so refreshing, but again, they're really great for a little energy boost. Since matcha is great for energy, I also like using it to make energy balls. These ones are matcha and coconut chocolate. I start by adding 1 cup of dates soaked in hot water for 15 minutes and then drained into my Magimix food processor. Then I add 1 cup of raw almonds, and I pulse that until the mixture begins to stick together. Then I add in 1/4 cup of raw cacao powder, 1/4 cup of cacao nibs, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla powder, and a pinch of salt, and then I blend that all up together. Lastly, I then add in 1 tablespoon of brown rice syrup. You could also use maple syrup, and blend it up again. Then in a separate bowl I just add 1/4 cup of grated coconut and 1 teaspoon of the Matcha Reserve Original Matcha powder, and just mix that up until the coconut is coated in the matcha. I then take around a tablespoon of the mix at a time and just roll it into balls between the palms of my hands. I usually wet my hands in between each one, and then roll it through the matcha coconut coating, and this makes 12 energy balls altogether. Again, they're great for a little energy boost, so they're perfect pre or post workout, as a snack, or even as a sweet treat after a meal. They're like raw chocolate brownie bites with the added flavour of matcha and coconut, and they're really delicious. And my last recipe is this matcha and vanilla ice cream. For this, I took the cream from 2 cans of coconut milk, so I set them in the fridge overnight, and then the cream settles on the top of the can, so you can just scoop it out and then reserve the liquid as it can be used for smoothies. I then added in 1 cup of raw cashew nuts, which was soaked in water overnight and then drained, 1/4 cup of coconut sugar, 1/4 cup of maple syrup, a tablespoon of the Matcha Reserve Vanilla Matcha, a teaspoon of vanilla powder, and a pinch of salt, and then I just blended that up until it was completely smooth. The night before, I also put my loaf pan in the freezer, so I removed that and then poured in my ice cream. I then covered the pan with some tin foil and placed it back in the freezer to set for around 4 hours. It's then ready to scoop. It's the perfect consistency. Very, very creamy, the perfect amount of sweetness too, but just because this is vegan, it doesn't mean it's healthy. It's very high in sugar and also fat, so it's good as a treat, and that will last in the freezer for up to 10 days, as long as you keep it covered well, and then just leave it at room temperature for 10 minutes before you scoop it out. I've been experimenting with coconut milk and cashew ice cream lately, and it's my new favourite way to make it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Go and check out the Matcha Reserve. There's a link in the description box below, as well as all of the written recipes shown in today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!